Hey peeps, we're back again. So, again, with our musings and talkings, we got a flash of inspiration for another video.
But you got a flash of inspiration. I'm just going to bounce a little.
Well, yeah, okay, it was more, do you want to do a video? Yeah, all right, let's do a video.
Yeah, let's do a video.
So, because, yeah, life is never boring. So,
No, it doesn't seem to be.
yeah. So, part of some stuff that's going on in a personal life at the moment, it kind of got me thinking on a slightly different track, so to speak. And that's kind of like the double standards that we kind of face in friendships, but more notably in mixed gender friendships.
Yeah,
Yeah. Now,
come across those.
it again plays into that old adage of men and women can't be friends, or men often Mars, women often Venus, and there's this
Yeah, no,
complete
yeah.
sort of mystical language or communication barrier that seems to be getting in the way of amicable communication between the two genders. Now, I think I'm not the only one that has noticed that.
No, I think
Safe to
everybody
say.
on the planet has noticed this. That's
Yes.
why it's such a, that's why men say that the book on understanding women's about this thick and women are like the same, it's like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Everybody's noticed that there are differences in everything,
Hmm.
and that we communicate in different ways.
Well, yeah, and that's mainly to do with biologically speaking, we are wired to react
Oh,
differently
totally.
towards each other. That's just how we are biologically set up. And I know a lot of people would argue, but we're not getting into that topic right now, that,
No.
gender being a social construct, and we are not going down that rabbit hole. We're just focusing on.
Well, no, hang on. Just to touch on that ever so slightly, gender and sex are slightly different. You can have a gender identity that is different to your sex. So biologically speaking, your sex is, what wires you differently.
Yeah,
But
we're talking in the conventional sense.
that is in a conventional sense. Yeah, we have,
Yeah.
But if you're talking about men and women, it's generally the sexes. So gender is something completely, well, I'd say completely different. It obviously ties in with it. It's very complicated. So we're just gonna say we're focusing on the sexes
and biology. And nature. So anyway, we're wired differently. It's just how the male and female are set up, because our core urge is to procreate. So there are going to be differences. There's going to be different ticks, different gimmicks, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we can't really take an example of a female mindset and copy and paste it and hold a man to the same standards, kind of thing. So
No.
yeah,
And vice versa.
yeah, we're set up that way. Argue as much as you want, but that's just how it is. Deal with
That's
it.
just how it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of genetics and nature and everything, that is just how it is.
But ultimately, with that, there are double standards, unavoidable double standards, but they're there. And this is what got me really thinking, because it was like really interesting once you really start putting some thought to it.
Rabbit hole.
Yeah, going down that road. So when you think of women, we're known to be the nurturers, the people that, grow the babies, albeit with the aid of the male sperm, but we make the babies.
Well, yeah, we're the baby factory. We're the ones that sort of have to grow it and birth it and feed it.
So, of course, by nature, we are the nurturers. We are a little bit more in tune emotionally, a little bit more in touch with the feelings. And it's kind of, yeah, in a way, it's kind of been painted in a negative aspect, like because of this, women are delicate or weak or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But
that's going into social aspects, though.
Not going down that road.
We're not going down that road. We're simply talking about biologically speaking, and genetically.
Yeah.
That is our. If I say the word purpose, people are going to go.
That is our role. That is our role. I'm going to say it.
We know that there are different. It's more complicated these days than that. But if you go back to cavemen days and stuff like that, and you look at the simplest organisms that had a male and a female, the women were the females were the my brain.
The nurturers. The
nurturers. Sorry.
So because of that, we're more in tuned, and we take the more delicate approach to things.
Yeah, there's been studies on humans and animals where they've sort of found out that female brains are kind of like wired to respond to higher pitched noises. So when you're asleep, you can hear your babies crying and you can go and tend to them, that sort of thing. So genetically speaking, we are actually wired to be the nurturers, to have the more emotional side.
Yeah, and on the flip side, the men are actually wired to pick up more on the bassier noises, which are more sounds more connected to danger or intrusion.
Like the growls of a wild animal will go back to cavemen days, I think, so that they can protect their family. Yeah.
So, yeah, and then going back on topic, kind of, went off.
Little detour.
Sorry, I'm kind of trying to follow my notes here because otherwise I'm really digress here. So sorry if this seems a bit choppy, peeps. So by nature, as we just said, men are the protectors, the providers, and therefore, their role is to, like you said, to protect, to hunt, to gather, to. So in their nature, although they are capable of being emotional and feeling and recognizing what they're feeling, but their approach is very different from a woman's approach, and it may seem like they're disconnected, but it's kind of their own process kind of thing. So I'm not saying that men are emotionally disconnected or more emotionally disconnected. I'm just saying
they're more internalized with it.
They're more internalized with it. That was the perfect way to phrase that. I was really struggling. So they take a more practical, driven, and no-nonsense approach to life, in contrast to the woman's role. So I'm using these words, the words by nature, to indicate that although this is natural and biological, like we said, there are exceptions to this norm.
There are, obviously, because we have evolved, so we're at a bit of a weird stage at the moment in evolution, I think. But we recognize that there are other things to it, but we're just focusing, as I've said, on the nature aspect.
So these differences between men and women naturally spill over into friendships or family relationships or work relationships or whatever, but
romantic,
it all spills over depending on what kind of interaction you have with each other. So the problem is that we don't really want to admit it, but our expectations of, in our case, female friends are different from those of our male friends. And that one's a hard pill to swallow because right away you have to admit I do treat them differently. And there's a reason why. And I'm pretty sure you have noticed this as well with your interactions.
Yeah.
Now, this is where I kind of find the double standards come into play. And I started actually seeing a pattern after thinking about it a little bit. So, generally speaking, and I'm intrigued to see what you think of this one. But when I really thought about it, I found that towards my male friends, I tend to be just a little bit more forgiving and flexible with them. Like they would get away with just a little bit more than what a female would get away with.
I don't know.
Well, think about it. How many times have we said, when a man has made a flippant or insensitive or unthoughtful comment, what is the default thing we say? Oh, he's a man, what do you expect? Do you see the problem there?
Yeah. However, your initial comment there about we have different expectations, that's fair enough, but we tend to treat them differently. May not be the right person to talk to you about this, because if I look at...
You kind of just confirmed it, because you chalk it up to, well, he's a man. What do you expect?
But what I'm sort of thinking about there is, I obviously, you know me, I have what you call infinite fucking patience. So I'm looking at the things that I have let people get away with, and women and men I have let get away with far more than I probably should have, but it depended on who it was. So I think I might be a slight exception to that.
Okay.
I can see where you're coming from. I can really see where you're coming from, because in certain relationships with for my romantic relationships with men, I've let them get away with way more than I would a friend. And like hurtful comments and stuff like that. I have been way too forgiving of stuff like that. Because I suppose I was well aware that we think about things differently, communicate slightly differently, so I can see your point of view with that one. But as far as my friendships with females and males have gone, it depends who it is and how deep the connection goes.
I guess.
This is, it's a bit of a complicated one, this one.
True. Okay, so on the flip side to that, okay, well, not the flip side. I mean, I guess I can kind of see your exception to that rule.
Yeah.
But like you said, romantically, then
I can completely agree with you on that one.
Yeah, but you've got a lot more at stake with a romantic relationship.
Of course.
So, well,
as far as
depending on how committed you are.
It really depends how bonded I am to that particular friend. So I am weird. I'm a walking contradiction.
As I said, every situation is unique, and
of course,
this is just my thought process. So I could be completely off the mark here.
Yeah. Let's say what you say does make sense. It's like we were saying, though, it's a very complicated and complex subject, because we're delving into not just nature, but we're also delving into psychology.
And we're no professionals.
We're not. But then even the professionals, there are differing opinions and things, because the mind is a vast thing, it's deeply it's just very difficult to understand. I mean, basically, we are trying to understand our own, so our brains are trying to understand our brains. That's
it's
how,
like the mirror effect.
yes, exactly. So the deeper you go into it, the more questions are raised. So yeah, it's like a whole little universe inside there.
That's in my mind. Whoa.
I actually saw your mind blow up.
Yeah, just
Cool.
thinking about that shit, it's like, holy fuck, you know when you know, but then when someone like spells it out and then you start thinking about it more, you're like, shit. It's kind of like that the ending to Men in Black with the marbles and the universe. Yes. Right there.
Woohoo! I blew your mind.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah, carry on.
So, okay, where I was actually going with that anyway, even though you kind of
derailed your brain slightly
a little bit, was, we kind of say, he's a man, what do you expect, words to those effect kind of thing. Now, whether we agree or not this is a good or a bad thing, one thing that we can agree on is that it's something that is very common. It can and it does happen.
Yeah, it does.
And it goes the same for men too, because they're all like, no, what you're going to do.
That's true. That is true.
So
that is very, very true. Women, what are you going to do?
We're both guilty of it.
Oh yeah, everybody.
So the point I was ultimately trying to make was, generally speaking, maybe there are exceptions, you being one of them, but I kind of find that we tend to expect a little bit more of our own gender.
Yeah, no, I can see that, because obviously it doesn't go for everybody, but a woman would know a woman's mind and how she would process things, and a man would know a man's mind and how he would process things.
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic scene that you see in I don't know, something on TV, where there's the coven of wenches. I don't know what other better term to describe it, but you know what I mean when I say the coven of wenches that convene. And and you can see the judgment and the gossip and the
we've actually, I think we've touched on this before in one of the videos.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah,
we have. And that's the thing, we can be our own worst enemy in that respect, because it's also something that I said before, that generally one-on-one with women we're fine, but 3 or more and bitch politics. So it's because we know how we think, act, we know what makes us tick, we know what women are like.
We know what we compete over.
Yeah, and we can be very conniving and competitive in that way,
Yeah.
Women can be bitchy, this
is coming from 2 women. We know.
But at the same time, we kind of have this unspoken code of conduct amongst a friendship circle or social circle. So we kind of know what's acceptable, what's unacceptable, both in character and friendship. So we kind of have our rules in place and the boundaries. Ideally.
Ideally.
I hasten to add.
Ideally.
Ideally. But what generally kind of happens is women judge women. Now, this can be a good thing or a bad thing, but women judge women. And what I mean by that is that if someone is not adhering to that code of conduct or those unspoken rules, now, if it's in a negative light, then yes, there is going to be negative judgment. But
of course,
there is also that chance of acting outside of the code of conduct, but in a positive way, in a way that could quite possibly inspire a shift in mindset, or open their eyes to a new view, or kind of like move them forward in some sort of positive way. So that judgment doesn't necessarily have to be bad.
No.
But it happens nonetheless.
Yes, of course.
And, you know...
Sorry.
Sorry, it's... I'm just trying to find my place here. So basically, women are not predisposed to understand the way men think and vice versa. It's, you know, men understand men, women understand women. And to a degree, we kind of project ourselves a little bit onto those
the other sex.
The other sex, and those that we also associate with as well, be them the opposite sex or the same sex. So that goes on, whether we want to admit it or not. But I'm going to hold my hands up to that. You know, we all have our shit. But the problem is we can try and, well, I don't know if it's really a problem. It can be problematic, but all we can really do is try to empathize and understand and try to make sense of it and communicate and find some sort of middle ground where you can at least understand each other.
Sorry.
No problem.
I just got my funny bone on my sewing machine.
Ow.
I'm okay. Carry on.
That's all right. So yeah, you can try to assume, you can try to empathize, but the danger there is assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups, and it's simply just not possible to completely comprehend fully where
you can. Yeah, no, I get that, because you can talk and try and understand and empathize and stuff like that, but you can never experience life. I mean, as a straight woman, I could never experience life as a straight man, or you know, you cannot physically understand from that perspective, because that's not how you're programmed.
No, whether you want to admit it or not, but yeah. Maybe you're an exception, but yeah.
Yeah, there's always genetic exceptions to these things. Like, you have people that are intersex, so they're living life as both male and female.
Yeah, but that's a very...
you know. But from what we're saying is, as a straight woman, I could not live life and understand life as a straight male, and vice versa. And if you're a gay man, you can't experience life as a lesbian. You know, all of those different connections. There's many different connections and different ways of people being. But what we're saying is, like, the majority. This is where we're trying to get come from. You know, if that made any sense at all.
Generally speaking. So, yeah, and that pretty much covers the gender bias section of it, I think. We could go deeper, but...
yeah, maybe we could do another video on that, perhaps. But yeah, it's just... Yeah. That side of things.
That's how we see it at a glance, kind of thing. So then you also have, well, I call it kind of like the trifactor in these double standards. So you have two other aspects at play with the gender bias, and that's natural sexuality and self-esteem.
Okay.
Now, what I mean by that is with natural sexuality, it doesn't really matter if there's kind of like a romantic interest. I mean, there is an attraction. Of course, there's an attraction. It can be a platonic attraction. It doesn't have to be a romantic one, but there is an attraction nonetheless, because you wouldn't be friends otherwise,
Of course.
So the romantic side of things is kind of irrelevant in this aspect. So
yeah, we're going to focus on the platonic.
Women have maybe I'm wrong, but again, I'm interested to see how you feel about this. But I feel that women have a natural tendency to want to appear attractive to the opposite sex, on some sort of subconscious level, at least. Now,
I think it's on a conscious level as well at times.
Okay, so you agree?
I mean, come on, every woman has done this, where they're sort of getting ready to go out and they're dolling themselves up. And yes, of course, there are loads of people that do it for themselves, but also in the back of your head, there's also this, especially if you have a partner, you want to present yourself in the best light for them. You want them to be attracted to you. So, that I think it is a conscious thing as well. I mean, obviously it comes from the subconscious, I suppose, but it is a conscious thing as well, especially if you have a partner, and you're in those early stages where it's all butterflies.
But even so, it's more the fact that when you go out, you want to put your best face forward.
Of course.
You want to appear attractive. I mean, not to attract eyes. Well, sort of.
Right, sort of, kind of, depending.
But more for the validation and the acceptance.
Of course,
than anything else, because it's, again, it goes back to how we're wired. Biologically speaking, men and women are designed for that. That's, it's the birds and the bees. So, of course, we want to look attractive. Whether or not we're committed or not, we still want to feel pretty. So,
I feel pretty.
I'm so pretty. Oh, we could break out into song, but we won't do that. So, I find with this, going back to my previous comment, this is where we kind of tend to give that little bit of leeway in behaviour from the opposite sex. You see where I'm going with this?
I think so, but continue. This is intriguing. I quite like this.
Okay.
Excuse me. Oh dear.
I find because of that want for validation and acceptance and wanting to feel pretty and beautiful and attractive, you are willing to be just a little bit more flexible with what you will expect. And again, here comes that, well, he is a man, and
yeah, again, I see where you're going.
Yeah, you're starting to see my point now from being against it. So, and we just wouldn't give that leeway to their female counterparts now, would we? Because we don't want to feel attractive, heterosexually speaking, I hasten to add.
Yeah, because I'm the frickin' contradiction on that one again.
Yeah, I know, but I'm talking in a heterosexual standpoint. Normal. We're talking
You're
about...
right, I'm going to put my straight face on.
Straight face.
I am straight. I am straight.
So, speaking from a straight mindset, you don't really want to... You're generally not going to be as flexible because you don't really need to seek that validation from your same gender.
No, I mean, for example, right now, okay, so I know that there's a load of people will be watching this, maybe watching this, hopefully watching this, but at the moment it's just you and I talking, right? Neither of us has makeup on. I'm in my pajamas, this is just how it be.
Yeah.
Whereas I think perhaps if I was talking with somebody else that maybe I had an attraction with, I would have put some makeup on.
You would have wanted to have presented yourself to be.
I would like to present myself in the best light, whereas with you, I don't give a damn. You don't care what I look like. It's not like you want to.
To speak outside the hetero spectrum, then. So I'm a female. You're not straight,
Yes.
but you don't feel the need for that validation because you get that validation and acceptance in another way from me.
Yes.
But if I was another woman that you were attracted to, or another man that you were attracted to, if platonic wasn't on the table kind of thing and this was romantic, you would be sat there dolled up right now. That's the point I'm trying to make. And you would give that leeway and flexibility, and you would, like you said before, when romance is involved, then right here. But from a hetero standpoint, when you're dealing with the same gender, you don't have that to deal with. So
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. And I agree, yeah.
Yeah, and we do this all in the name of acceptance and validation, which leads on to the self-esteem. And this is mostly an issue with women who have experienced a toxic relationship with a father or with a paternal figure of authority, or maybe even an abusive.
I'm gonna go hide now.
Romantic relationship.
I'm gonna hide. Go on. Hit me with it.
So, again, we've already covered this about abuse victims, how they suffer a very deep trauma. And this can often happen almost compulsively, subconsciously, whatever. Go out and seek this validation, this acceptance, this make me feel pretty and beautiful and sweep me off my feet. Even excusing or rationalizing horrendous behavior.
Yep. Yeah, everything you said has just gone ding, 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 ding. We have a winner.
That's what I was building to, by the way. That's the end of my notes. So, your opinions?
You're a fucking dick.
No, right?
She didn't tell me. She said, she told me the topic. But I said, I just didn't tell me the notes and everything. Just wanted to see my reaction. Well, there's my reaction. Yeah. I'm just gonna blush with embarrassment right now. Yeah, so, that's one of my issues.
In short, therein lies the double standards.
Yes. Yeah, it really does. But then, this is the thing, with my female friendships as well. Okay, it's difficult to explain. With my female friendships, obviously we've got the little trifactor going on here. I have had the toxic relationship with my father, and my relationship with my mother has been quite tempestuous as well. It's much better now, let's put it that way. As I've got older, as we both got older, things have kind of clicked into a place a bit more.
The storm has settled a little.
The storm has settled, yeah. She calls me her best friend, That's the relationship that we have now. But that wasn't always the case. And there was a lot of times where I couldn't speak to her. So with my female friendships, I would suggest that perhaps in some way I was seeking that maternal replacement. Not replacement, but something that I couldn't have with her. And I've noticed that with my female friendships, there's always been an element of I tend to find myself attracted to, platonically, we'll say platonically, because obviously I'm not straight. I find myself attracted platonically to women, and it was girls, obviously, because I was younger, that have a more dominating personality. So that has quite often backfired for me, to the point where I have been completely and utterly dominated by my female friendships, to the point where it almost felt like a very destructive marriage. And I mean, even with you as well, dude, you know, because do you remember when I was living in Germany and you were getting me my 21st birthday present?
Yeah.
And you were getting all of the little charms for the charm bracelet and everything, and you were asking me random questions that I just had no idea what the fuck you were talking about. But you asked me one day, you said, do you see yourself as the big sister or the little sister? Even, you know, because I'm 4 months, no, is it 4 months? No, I'm 6 months older than you. So technically speaking, I should be the big sister. But what did I say?
You said little.
Yeah. So that, you know, kind of says it all, really. I mean, obviously these days we're much on an even keel, but I guess I was attracted to you in a platonic sense because you had that aura of authority, but also the nurturing side of things. Okay, you were kind of blunt and stuff, and it kind of took me off guard quite a lot.
You got used to it.
I got used to it. But yeah, no. So yeah, I suppose I can see where you're coming from with all of this. And as for male relationships, whether they're platonic or romantic, yeah, I can see that I do tend to give way a little bit more than I would with my female friendships, although it has taken me a long time to get to a point with my female friendships where I can say, hang on a minute, this isn't acceptable.
But that's the boundary work that we were also talking about.
Yeah. But I still struggle on that one with men. I struggle on that one very much with men. I mean, I say unfortunately, I seem to attract men a lot with, I don't know, I guess it's difficult to explain because I'm going to sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet slightly, but it's never the attention that I wanted. I would have a platonic male friendship. I would see this man as a platonic relationship, you know, and yet he would see it completely differently.
Yeah, you were on two different pages, you know.
Yeah. And while I was saying to him, because once that line got crossed.
But then again, just to make a quick point, that's also a classic example of the boot on the other foot. Men trying to copy and paste how they are and their expectations onto the opposite sex and gender. And that's where you kept hitting the brick wall.
Yeah. The point I was going on to make, it sort of ties in with this, is time and time again, I would get close to a male friend and I would feel completely platonic. I wouldn't feel any romantic connection there, but I regarded them as very dear, very close, and I loved them. But they would view that as something that it wasn't. So as soon as they started to push for more, be it just of a sexual nature, or they wanted a relationship, because I kind of have lost count of the amount of times that a man has said to me that I'm his soulmate, and I'm sat there going, that's not how I was seeing it, you know? And once that line got crossed, I started to panic. And it hit me again and again and again. And I'm there saying, look, I don't feel that way about you. But I do love you. You know, you are somebody dear to me. And yet they would take that as a rejection of them.
No,
and it wasn't.
It's again, as we discussed before, that difference between romantic love and platonic love, and how one is valued more than the other, while the other goes completely underrated and underestimated.
Yeah. When you said all of that, it blew my mind because it made so much sense to me. Whereas actually, I don't look at it that way. I don't think a romantic relationship, a romantic love is more valuable than a platonic one. I see them as equal, but you know, they're different. But they still mean as much to me. You know, so for me to be saying, but I do love you, you're very dear to me, and them to say, well, fuck you, you know, why don't you want me? Why don't you want me? And then keep pushing. And then I'd have to walk away because they'd get too much, and they'd get angry with me, and I never understood that. And it's like, well, I've just lost a friend again. Oh God, I'm getting a little bit emotional about that because the amount of times that's happened, it's just one of those, oh well, okay, I guess I can't have male friends.
And then the whole Harry met Sally scenario plays out in your head, and then you start having the whole discussion then.
And to make a point about the importance of romantic and platonic love, to me especially, is the prime example really would be my ex-husband and you. I knew that was going to get a reaction. Okay, so my ex-husband, father of my kids, right? And you, they didn't really see eye to eye. No. Tried. Failed. Became civil. Sometimes. You know, but he was just a teaser, so if he sort of started digging on you, you'd just give it back.
I tried to ignore him, but yeah.
Yeah, you know? But anyway, there was a way of pushing your buttons, so that's fine. But at the time, obviously, I thought that I was really, really deeply in love with this man. Okay, I realise, looking back on it now, that we weren't right for each other, hence we are ex-partners, you know, the marriage sort of left. But at that particular time in my life, neither one of you was more important to me than the other. And I could go so far as to say that there were times when he would have preferred that you weren't in my life, and kind of made it a bit difficult for me to see you at times, especially with his behaviour when you were around. And there were times when he would just berate you when you weren't around. You know, just various things about you that he didn't approve of. So if the romantic love was more important to me than the platonic love, given the animosity, I would have backed away from our friendship, but I didn't, because to me, you were just as important to me as he was. So, yeah, no, for me, it's different, obviously, it's different, but both are of equal value. You know, I would be lost without my friendship with you. I don't have a romantic partner at the moment, but I have felt I have had romantic partners, and they were of equal importance. But I can admit that that I did forgive more than I should have with a romantic partner. And that is totally down to my self-esteem and my traumas. You know, it really does make a point with what you're saying. I guess I'm living proof of it. But yeah, no, I do agree with that. Because hindsight being what it is, I can see the things that I did, and with the person that I was, the boundaries got pushed a bit more, and I forgave a bit more, got pushed a bit more, and I forgave a bit more, and so on and so on and so
It's
on, until
kind of give an inch, take a mile kind of thing.
Yeah. So my boundaries got shoved to the point where they just weren't even there anymore. You know, so I forgave way more than I should have. And even after the big event that happened with my friend and my ex-husband, I forgave both of them. It may have taken a while, but I still did. So, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. You did loads of thinking today.
Yeah, my brain just kind of went on a tirade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did, well, you know what inspired this? It was
Yes, I did. Yeah.
an incident that occurred with a friend. And some double standards were kind of highlighted, and it really got me thinking. So,
as things do tend to do.
Yeah. And the timing of it is just, he picked the worst possible time. So.
Yeah, so it's just one of those here we go again situations. I mean, how many times has that happened? It's sad, and it's you get to the point now where it's just, why does this keep happening? I mean, am I not valued? And that ties into your whole validation thing. Although it was a platonic friendship and everything, did this person not value me?
To be honest, the way he has reacted, I really don't think so. It doesn't look like he did with his response. I mean, maybe he did, maybe he...
But then that's what we were talking about, the communication aspect and how differently men and women think. You don't know for sure. You can make your guesses and try and suss it out yourself, but unless this person actually honestly communicates with you, you don't know.
But that was the thing. It's a shame. And it does actually go back to the point that I did make about that extra leeway and flexibility. Now, sorry. I'm also guilty of that. It wasn't just a big finger point at you.
No.
But it was more the fact that, I have actually been a lot more flexible and lenient. As there were a few other incidences that really don't fall under gender or sex, but more kind of a shitty thing to do / say. And it being a reoccurring theme to the point of, okay, I've heard this now 3 times already, this is now the 4th. When are you going to stop? You know, we've already had this conversation, now it's just insulting. To how he criticized other friends only to do exactly the same and not even see it. And it's just, at what point do you draw the line between miscommunication between the genders and just being an arse? So it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
But I think that's a subject for for another video, but so we're not going to dive into that. But
No.
that was kind of the thought process to this, and it's just shit. It's just shit.
It's just shit.
Really,
I mean, it would be really nice if there was some kind of app or device that we could have that could just translate each other. You know, like, you know, if you if you're in these situations and your friendship is opposite sex, obviously you don't really know what the other person's thinking, and they don't really know what you're thinking or feeling, that sort of thing. It would be nice if there was, you know, there was this miscommunication that you could just get an app and it would translate for you what that person's thinking and feeling, so that anything, you know, there's no crossed wires or anything. Because it would seem that even with open and honest communication, there's still crossed wires because we communicate differently. You know?
Yeah.
It's just it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation sometimes.
There is just, I mean, and essentially you can talk your way out of it amicably if you're both open to it, but a lot of the times we just hit those brick walls and stubbornness and ego gets in the way, and then it's like,
oh God, that freaking ego. Ego is a pain in the ass at times.
But again, that's a rant for another time, huh?
It is.
But now, I guess in conclusion to what we were saying is, yeah, unfortunately, these may be double standards, but essentially they are obstacles that can be worked around or overcome if the friendship is genuinely worth it, and, you know, regardless of the gender. But it also gives you food for thoughts of when things do go badly and wires does get crossed. And it's good to take a step back and think about this shit, because it helps you understand the situation just that little bit better. And maybe next time you'll go into it a little bit wiser. You know, it's
also it's important to take a step back and think about it. And even though you may be a different sex and you think differently, if you can try and put yourself in that other person's place, in their shoes, if you can try and understand things from their perspective, you know, you might be able to communicate a bit better. Because obviously when we hit arguments or tiffs or there's misunderstandings, especially between platonic friendships of the opposite sex, it is very difficult to sort of see that the other person is hurting from something you may have done or said, and vice versa. And you know, sparks are flying and things just, it's like a square peg in a round hole. It's just not going to fit.
No.
You know? So if you can see that your own ego is getting in the way, and put that aside for a second and just think about the things that you have said and done, but try and hear it and feel it from the other person's side. This goes for everybody, actually. This goes for everybody, but it is quite important to do with platonic male and female friendships. If you're a man and you've said something sexist to a woman, try and put yourself in her shoes and see why she's going, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know, why would you say that to me? That's mean. Or if you've said something sexist as a woman to a man, you know, or just dismissed his emotions or something, try and put yourself in his shoes and feel how he's feeling. And you know, it's a good tool in order to try and resolve conflict. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the best we can really do. Find common ground.
Yes, find common ground.
To compromise. But if you're not willing to do that, then no matter what, your relationship, friendship it's doomed.
It's almost like it's like in the business world. You know, People in all of the business world, there's people flying around the world and everything like that. And very often you have to have meetings with people that don't speak your language. So there used to be the business language, so I was told, used to be French, but now it's English. So quite often you'll have somebody from Japan and somebody from France speaking in English. So if you have your language. As a female, you have your language. As a male, he has his language. If you can find that third language to communicate in, then there won't be any cross wires.
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy. That's really a perfect analogy. So yeah, the main point is step back and really think and reflect, because it's an issue that comes up, and it's definitely food for thought. If you want to have a successful mixed gender friendship or relationship of some sort. And that's our 2 cents on that.
I think that was more like £2.
€2, whatever currency.
Sorry, yeah.
Well,
yeah, the exchange rate there's a bit.
I don't know what the bloody exchange rate is. But anyway, I think we've been going on for like forever. So, yeah. So we're going to wrap up here, guys. And I think we're actually going to pick up on some splinter subjects from this, because there's definitely more.
Yeah, there's a lot there that I think we could delve a little deeper into.
Yeah, and if something has sparked your interest, or you'd like to hear us expand a little more on something we've touched on, then let us know, and we'll see what we can do. Anyway, what?
That would be good.
Yeah, be cool. So, yeah. Okay, my duty. On that note,
Sorry.
Thanks for watching, peeps. As always,
thank you.
Much appreciated. Much love, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Comprehend, you can try to understand.
Hang on. Hang on.
Fuck, dude.
Where are you, you little bastard? Gotcha. No. Fucking die. This is fight or flight in action right now.